3 years ago, AEW held their initial press conference announcing to the world that they have arrived. And at that event, they made several campaign promises. And while much of what they have said has come to pass, there are a few things that, well, didn't. And those are the topic of this episode. Because today... Thank you so much for all the generous support over on Patreon to all of my Patreon supporters like Ron Hawthorne and Jeremy P. Thank you so much. Okay, so for this video, I'm not trying to disparage AEW as a whole. I just think it's interesting to go back and look at some of the things that we were promised that didn't exactly come into fruition. Oh, and before we get into the list, please be sure that you're a member of the Know-It-All Nation and that you hit that subscribe button, as it really does help to support this channel, just like my awesome Patreon supporters out there. Anyway, with that being said, let's get into the list. Cody Rhodes said that AEW would change the wrestling economy. He also said that they would change the fact that pro wrestlers were the least paid professional athletes. Well, doesn't seem like either of those things happened. While AEW is not a publicly traded company like WWE, and therefore doesn't have easy access to all their financial records from a known source, there are still reports out there that very much tell the tale that AEW salaries are not considered game-changing. A quick Google search reveals that Aaron Rodgers is paid $50.3 million. And according to one article, Jon Moxley is the highest paid AEW competitor at only $6 million. Now, the article was said to have last been updated this year. However, this apparently still doesn't take into account Daniel Bryan or CM Punk, so who knows. But if there is any truth to this article whatsoever, then that's a far cry from bringing wrestlers out of the trenches. In fact, Moxley wouldn't even be making the same amount of money as the highest paid Jacksonville Jaguar. But let's not focus on the highs. Instead, let's take a look at the average. Because maybe it's not about looking at individuals, instead, maybe it's about looking at the group as a whole. Well, if that is the case, well, they're striking out here too. Again, according to a quick Google search, the average NFL salary is that of $2.7 million. In the NHL, it's $2.69 million per year. And in basketball, it's $7.5 million. Now, as for AEW, according to this one article, it's only a mere $300,000, which is said to be less than even the average salary of WWE. So much for changing the wrestling economy, huh? Okay, and now on to an obvious one. Cody Rhodes was announced as one of the executive vice presidents of All Elite Wrestling, and needless to say, that is no longer the case since he has re-signed with WWE. And also, on a side note, the whole awkward banter between him and the Bucks over who gets to make what announcement, well, I don't find it cute, I just find it annoying. I mean, this lack of organization might just have been a sign of things to come. Anyway, with Cody Rhodes now back in World Wrestling Entertainment, it sure does make all of his shots that he's taken at WWE, even those beyond that of the press conference, seem kind of quaint. Almost like he was just a jilted lover. But hey, I guess this all goes to show what a difference 3 years can make. Especially considering that it has been said that his personal relationship with both the Bucks and Tony Khan has also been strained as well, with Cody not appearing on the Being the Elite YouTube channel in quite some time. Which is, by the way, where you can still watch this press conference. Although the sound is off. Minor gripe, but nevertheless I want to point it out. Now, not holding up doesn't always mean that it didn't happen, but sometimes it can also reflect something being promised that just doesn't deliver on impact. Such was the case with OWE. At this press conference, the Young Bucks made a big deal about working with this promotion, talking about how they went to China and found professional wrestlers from this group that you guys were just going to love. And even with global problems notwithstanding, we still did get to see some OWE talent. The only problem is, did anyone care? So when the Bucks promised that we were going to love them, it doesn't seem like we did, since a lot of people have kind of forgotten about this. And I don't think anyone's clamoring to see them come back. And at this point, it's not even clear if they will, with their working relationship with AEW not even being a talking point amongst anyone, showcasing that this announcement was probably better off left unsaid. Also at this press conference was none other than Joey Janella with his then girlfriend Penelope Ford. Where do we begin with this? Well, not only are Ford and Janella no longer a couple, but Penelope is now married to Kip Sabian, in both kayfabe and in real life. But not only did Penelope separate herself from Joey Janella, but so did AEW, as Joey is no longer with the company. Not only that, but he didn't really do all that much while he was there anyway, with his only noteworthy things in AEW being his match against Jon Moxley and teaming with Sonny Kiss. Furthermore, his appearance in this press conference showcased that the Bucks may have misconstrued how popular he was with the wrestling community, with some people, including the person who is editing this clip right now, making it very clear that they are not a fan of Joey Janela at all, which just makes it weird that he was once considered to be a frontline player for AEW. Okay, so now that we talked about Joey and Penelope, let's go back to another couple, as in Cody and Brandy Rhodes, the former chief Brandy officer. Again, just like with Cody, obviously Brandy is no longer with AEW, but that's not all to take note of from this press conference when looking back, as Brandy also mentioned not only would there be a women's division in All Elite Wrestling, but she also said that there would be equal pay and that there's no sliding scale. But again, according to the same report that we looked at earlier, this doesn't seem to be the case, with Brandy Rhodes allegedly being the highest paid female in AEW at only $2 million, which isn't even equal to that of her husband Cody. But fine, Cody was an EVP, so it's understandable that he might have a different salary considering he has a different position. But even with that aside, there is no woman who's getting paid as much as Jon Moxley is. And he isn't an EVP, he strictly holds the title of talent. And furthermore, when we remember that newer stars did sign with the promotion such as CM Punk, who wanted a big bag of money, well, we start to ask the question, do we think that the top stars of the women's division like Britt Baker, who is the first signed female talent to AEW, are making just as much as CM? And is she even making as much as her boyfriend, Adam Cole? I mean, there's gotta be a reason why she's still a practicing dentist, right? And now we have something else that went rather underwhelmingly, and that's Adam Page versus Pac. During this initial press conference, Adam Page was mentioned as the future of this business, and even though he would end up winning the AEW World Championship, I think we could admit that his run was a little lackluster. And while no one knows what the future will hold, based off of his initial title reign, I don't quite think he's going to be the face of a generation. But furthermore than this, Page himself also announced that he would be the first AEW champion, which, as it turns out, wasn't the case, as that was an honor that would go to Chris Jericho. But initially, this match to crown the inaugural champion was supposed to be between Page and Pac, after Pac himself came out to issue the challenge, in his full ring gear while everybody else was wearing suits. Weird. But alas, for a variety of reasons, this match didn't happen. While it did occur, it didn't happen at Double or Nothing, and it wasn't for the championship when it did. And I have to say, it's not a good sign when your first planned match doesn't even go through in the way that you wanted. And our last entry is up for interpretation, but it has to do with the revolution that we were promised. Sure, depending on who you ask, this answer might vary, but as a whole, I just want to bring up the idea that we were going to get a revolution, that the system would be shaken up, and that we would get a true alternative to WWE. Now, many would say that all those things have happened, but when you look at how many former WWE talents are now in AEW, how much of an alternative is this really? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that this is a bad thing, and I'm not saying that there aren't plenty of positive changes that AEW has made. I'm just saying that it's fair to ponder whether or not it's enough to really count as a true revolution. Again, it all comes down to who you ask, but I say when it comes to a revolution, asking is important. Well, there you go. 7 campaign promises from the initial AEW press conference that didn't end up happening exactly the way we were told. But anyway, are there other things that AEW has yet to deliver on that you're waiting for? And are there some positive things that they did deliver that you are very happy that they did? Let me know all that down in the comments, and please make sure that you're subscribed to this channel. Thank you for watching, and thank you to all my awesome Patreons out there. And as always, Dave knows.